What is the deal with food noise? Is it a legit thing? And do we have any control over it? Yes, yes, and yes. If you've ever wondered if it's normal that food talks to you and how to get it to stop, you're going to want to pull up a seat and get your pen ready because today we're talking simple solutions to knock out the noise.
Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, I'm Sam, dietitian, specialist in weight management, and former functioning fat girl. I learned the secret of how to lose and maintain weight by simply nourishing my life well. If you're ready for the sustainable nutrition strategies, consistent habits, and freedom from a self-sabotaging mindset, grab your water bottle and let's go.
You are receiving such great nuggets of value from the More Than a Number podcast that you can apply to your daily habits and health goals. But if you know you need a higher touch to help you on your journey, an accountability partner to keep you focused on your goals, investigate the simplest solutions to eliminate the overwhelm of being stuck like Chuck with your weight loss attempts, and an expert to help you wade through the weeds of the 10 tons of health and nutrition information from the interwebs that may or may not be beneficial for you, I have great news. I am currently accepting one-on-one coaching clients for my 90 Days to Nourish Well program, where we eliminate the weight overwhelm and get you to start achieving long-lasting results. If that sounds like what you need, click the link in the show notes, my friend, to sign up and start moving towards your goals. I can't wait to meet you. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, there you are. I'm so glad you're here. Listen, I can remember hearing the term food noise for the first time ever in my life a few years ago. And I was like, yes, that is the absolute perfect way to describe it. And then suddenly it hit me. Wait, that's not normal? Not everybody has that. It kind of it was a mix. It felt incredibly vindicating on one hand, but also really sad at the same time. I can remember, countless days where I'd be quote unquote good all day long at, my food intake, whatever diet I was on at the time, and just sitting and daydreaming about food. I would think about all the different fast food spots that I was craving. If I was at work or at school, I would think about all those hot spots on the way home and what my favorite things were to get from there. Wendy's spicy chicken, Chick-fil-A waffle fries, Taco Bell cheesy gordita crunch, or how I could go into Publix and get my usual binge go-to, a full-on, full-size pub sub with a full-size bag of barbecue or salt and vinegar chips, an entire princess cake from the bakery, if you know on that one, and then I would get, of course, the giant Diet Coke to go with it. But those thoughts would be circulating in my head constantly, especially on particularly tough days. And to be honest, I'm kind of saying it in past tense right now, but I, to this day, struggle with those thoughts. And even on some of the hardest days, it may not be necessarily the Taco Bell or Wendy's or things like that. I really don't struggle with those kind of fast food cravings, but I know what's in my kitchen. I know what I can create or bake in my kitchen if I'm really struggling. I also know when I go to the grocery store, when I go to Publix, I know how I have to kind of set myself up for success to avoid just putting extra stuff into my cart to take home that I don't want to have. I'm a Christian, and I feel I am so connected to Paul in the book of Romans in the Bible, chapter 7, where he's talking about sort of being conflicted between why do I do these things that I don't want to do or not do the things that I do want to do. And that is a constant struggle going through my head when I'm not in a good place or maybe haven't been setting myself up for success. The thing is, it's not just on tough days, or it wasn't just on tough days. And it's not always about binging on quote unquote junk food. It can just be a constant focus on when I'm going to eat next, what I'm going to eat, how much of it I'm going to eat. Have I been accurately logging my food? How many calories is the next thing going to add to my daily balance? Will it be good? Will it be boring? Will it fill me up? Will I still want to eat more afterwards? Will I see a difference on the scale tomorrow? While I'm eating, I'm thinking about how this food is affecting me. If I'm around other people, are they watching me? Are they judging what I'm eating or how much I'm eating? If I'm at an event or even, just with like a group of other people, whether it's like a work thing or a family thing or, a holiday, something like that, where there's a lot of food present, and in particular foods that I don't want to eat in excess because it's not part of the plan. The entire time I'm talking to people, I'm having a war in my head that I can't or shouldn't have the cookies on the table in the other room. But what if I just have one or two? What about the crackers and cheese? I probably shouldn't, but I love crackers and cheese. And it's on and on and on and on. Can you relate? Do you know what I'm talking about? And are we for real that that's not a normal thing that everyone experiences? I'm laughing, but it's not funny, it's actually not normal per se, but it is most definitely common among those of us who have been on this weight roller coaster for, whether our entire lives or for just at least a long period of time. One of the most common things clients tell me when we discuss their goals and their weight history is that they just don't want to think about it so much anymore. They want to be free from that constant tug of war in their heads, the constant attacks of, again, as a Christian, I believe they're attacks from the enemy, from the adversary. They want to just be at peace with food and their bodies. And same. Me too. One of the main reasons these GLP-1s and injectable meds are so hot right now is that, of course, because they're helping people to lose weight, but what is most valued by their users, and I have interviewed and discussed this with so many people who are either currently on or have been on these injectable drugs, that the biggest thing is that they have the ability to turn off the food noise. Now, the whole topic of these drugs and weight loss is an entirely different conversation, and that's for a different podcast for a different day. But with respect to specifically food noise, it's one of the major reasons that these drugs are so popular. So for those of us who are not on them, or even those of you who maybe are on them and are wanting to come off of them at some point, but are just scared that noise will return, is there anything that we can do to stop the noise? Well, I'm here to give you some hope, my friends, and say yes, 100%. There are things within our control to at least avoid as much of the food noise as possible. I will not say that you can get rid of it for good and for always, because I truly believe that a piece of that is more mental than physical. And when food has always been our go-to coping mechanism. There will definitely be times when life throws us for a loop, and it may be more difficult to manage that noise than others. But the great part is we don't have to just lie down and deal with it. There are things that we can do to set ourselves up for success. And one of the best parts about that is that we don't have to be perfect to be successful in our weight loss and weight maintenance. Let me say that again. We don't have to be perfect to be successful in our weight loss or weight maintenance. We just have to be consistent most of the time. So I want to give you some tactical things that you can consider if you're struggling with that food noise, that you can start to think about and modify and implement into your lives. The first thing I want to talk about is hydration. Typically, sort of what I use as a bare bones minimum with my clients is 64 ounces of fluids, especially for those of us who live in warmer climates. I am in South Florida, where pretty much for the most part, the entire year, all we have to do is open our door and we're sweating already. So if you do any amount of activity outside or, spend any amount of time outside, we do a lot of sweating down here in South Florida. So if you live in a warmer climate like I do, 64 ounces is definitely kind of a bare bones minimum. There are certainly some exceptions to this and some medical conditions where a doctor may put someone on a fluid restriction. So obviously, if you are one of those people, then you go by the amount that your doctor is telling you to have. But for the most part, those of us who are just trying to stay well hydrated, we can use 64 ounces as kind of a baseline. And we always want to be shooting for more than 64 ounces. What can happen is our brain can get confused sometimes between hunger and thirst. And, those of us who like food, our bodies can feel some type of way. And because our go-to is food and we like to eat, we think, surely I must be hungry. But it could be our body's way of telling us that we need to drink more fluids. So if we're sort of, stuck in this cycle of thinking about food and feeling hungry all the time, I'm not saying always, but it can have something to do with a lack of fluids, a lack of hydration. Okay, so that's something that you want to look at. Do a little self-assessment for yourself. Take a day where you're gonna record every single ounce of fluid that you're drinking, and at the end of the day, add it all up and kind of see where you got to. Now, the specifics on what you're drinking is again another topic for another podcast, and we can certainly get into the details of all of that. But for the most part, I'm not necessarily talking about plain water, but you want to record everything that you're drinking and see how much you are getting in at the end of the day. Okay, so then we want to look at our food intake. Are you actually eating enough? Is usually the first thing that I look at, because if we are daydreaming about food all day and we're feeling hungry all day, are you actually hungry? We tend to beat ourselves up and say like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. I have no willpower. I just want to eat food all day long. But you could legitimately be physically hungry all day if you're not fueling your body appropriately. My girls from the 80s and 90s, my gals that are in their 40s and early 50s right now, we grew up in a time where in order to lose weight, you have to eat like a bird, basically nothing, and exercise for 1,000,000 hours a day, do 10 tons of cardio, kill ourselves with cardio, and eat nothing. Unfortunately, my friends, that's not actually true. And it can really be harmful to our weight loss journey and then subsequently our weight maintenance afterwards. So, are you actually fueling appropriately for one, the physical activity that you're doing, and two, just, fueling appropriately for your body and your life in general? And so that is another cool part about my job, and what I love to do with my clients is really kind of analyze their intake and figure out what they're taking in. One, is it enough? And two, how can we shift and balance out and adjust some of the intake to make a person feel more satisfied from the food that they're eating? And so kind of wacky blood sugar spikes and dips throughout the day is very, very common if one, you're not eating enough protein, or two, you're taking in kind of too much simple carbohydrates throughout the day. They can be causing excess hunger and cravings. If your meals do not have enough good quality protein in them and are more like simple carbohydrate based, like to give you an example, I think of having a bagel for breakfast, or just, no shade against my peoples, but a plate of pasta for a meal. Something like that is more carbohydrate based and not having enough protein, that's not going to sit in your gut for very long. So you're going to be hungrier faster. Macronutrient protein in particular is much more satiating than any other macronutrient, meaning it sits in your gut for longer. It takes longer to break down and process through your system, which then allows you to feel more satisfied, more full for a longer period of time. The other thing I think people miss is the amount of time you're going in between meals. So sometimes I'll talk to someone and they tell me that they have lunch at noon, and then, they end up overeating at night, and they can't understand why they're overeating in the evenings. But when they tell me they have dinner at 7 o'clock at night, I'm like, okay, that's 7 hours in between your meals. I would be like stabbing someone for food by 7 o'clock. So that's a really long time to go. If you're going more than, say 4 hours, 5 at the most in between your meals, then that might be an indication that you need to plan for an intentional snack in between that's going to help keep you more satisfied. So I typically use 4 to 5 hours as the maximum amount of time that you want to go in between meals. And eating more mindfully, so how we eat actually plays a big role as well. And for a lot of people like me, I consider myself an inhaler. I eat very, very fast. We want to really pay more attention when we're eating. And mindful eating means actually taking smaller bites and chewing our food. So we want to take the time to chew our food. I know this is kind of like weird to talk about or explain, but you want it to be more of like a baby food consistency in your mouth before you swallow. We shouldn't be swallowing whole pieces of food. You want to chew it very well, swallow, and pause in between bites. If you can get in the habit of putting a fork down, really kind of paying attention more and not being distracted while you're eating. All of those things, to recap, making sure that you have enough good protein at your meals, not skipping meals or going too long of a time in between meals. Are you eating enough food and enough of a variety? Aside from protein, are you getting fiber in there from fruits and vegetables, or high fiber complex carbohydrates like whole grains? And are you eating mindfully? So taking smaller bites, chewing well, pausing in between your meals. Those are the main things that I would look at with your intake, and we'll certainly break that down into more details in later episodes. And the second to the last thing that I want to bring up is your sleep. Are we sleeping enough? And is our sleep good quality? It is so incredibly underrated, our sleep, with people, because I think we live in such kind of like this busy society. We don't often look at outside influences on our intake. Like I meet with people so often and they're like, just tell me what to eat. Like, just give me the piece of paper that says what to eat and that's what I'll do and that's how I'm gonna lose weight. Cool. No. I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works. And yes, obviously as a dietitian, I very much value nutrition, and what we're putting into our body is a huge part of it. But there are other factors that play into how we nourish our bodies and nourish our lives. And rest and getting proper sleep is so impactful. What we don't realize is when we're not sleeping enough and we're not getting a good enough quality of sleep, that can raise our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. And we do know that when our stress hormone is raised, when our body is feeling more stress, that increases a little hormone called ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. So we know that when cortisol is raised, ghrelin is raised, meaning if we didn't get a good night's sleep last night, we're going to feel more hungry throughout the day, and we're going to want to be turning to food more often throughout the day. So that food noise can be triggered through a deprivation of sleep or a lack of good quality sleep. So you really want to consider your sleep hygiene, as we call it these days. Hear me when I say this. You have got to sleep. You have got to get good quality sleep. I know. There are so many people who think I just don't have time. But the reality is that we can always do better. So I am not saying that it's realistic that every person is going to be able to sleep for 8 hours a night. I don't do that either. I try, but I do not get a full 8 hours of sleep a night. But if you're only sleeping 4 hours a night, can we find an extra 30 minutes of sleep to give you? Can we go to bed a little bit earlier, just a little bit, and just start there? Remember, we always want to take baby steps. So, we're not going to go from 4 hours a night to 8 hours a night, but can you find another 30 minutes? Can you go to sleep 30 minutes sooner? Or is there a way that you can maybe eliminate the 30 minutes that you spend hitting snooze and just set your alarm for the time that you actually need to get up? Which, trust me, guys, I struggle with that myself. But these are just ideas of some of the ways that you can encourage more sleep in your life. And then lastly, for all of my ladies out there who still have a menstrual cycle, are you in and around your cycle? Or are you, like me, in these stages of perimenopause that is creating a lot of extra kind of hormonal shifts that cause excess cravings and food noise? So if the answer is yes, instead of beating yourself up over not having willpower or discipline to stay away from these foods that you're craving or thinking about food, think about how you're talking to yourself. Are you being a cheerleader or a bully to yourself? We want to be cheerleaders. We want to encourage and give ourselves grace and allow ourselves permission to not be perfect. Because guess what? Nobody is. So instead of beating yourself up and being a bully to yourself, be a cheerleader. And the other things that you can do is structure your intake and your activity to support your cycle. So maybe you allow a little bit more carb in your life during those times so that your brain's happy that you're getting those carbohydrates instead of trying to fight it and white knuckle your way through and then kind of going off the rails and saying, oh, the heck with it, I'm just gonna, eat all the carbs for this week of my cycle. And, as far as activity goes, if you're extra exhausted or tired, instead of just planning to do your usual really intense HIIT workout, maybe you just plan to go for walks during that week of your cycle, or implement what I do as the something versus nothing routine, meaning whatever I can muster the energy to do on those first it actually starts with like 2 or 3 days before my cycle, and then the first 2 days is when I'm extra exhausted, and that I have kind of figured out from just tracking my energy levels and tracking my intake and sleep and everything. So on those days, I already know I'm going to be extra exhausted. And so my workouts are a lot less intense than when I feel like I have more energy on the other days. Okay? So those are the 4 things that I would look at if you are struggling with food noise, so that you can try to reel it in and at least set yourself up for success. Hydration. How much are you drinking? Make sure that you're drinking enough fluids, that you are well hydrated, and that your brain is not confusing the hunger and the thirst cues. What is your food intake? Are you eating enough? Are you going on these wacky blood sugar roller coaster spikes and dips because you're not getting enough protein, or because you're skipping meals, going too long in between meals, and getting extra hungry? So protein intake and the structure of your meals throughout the day. How are you balancing your meals and kind of planning out the timing of your meals? Are you eating mindfully when you eat? Are you eating too fast, not paying attention, just being distracted when you're eating? Are you sleeping both enough and well? How many hours are you getting a night, and can we improve that at least by a little bit? The quality of your sleep, we didn't get into too much, but are you looking at blue lights up until it's time to go to bed? Are you scrolling through social media or whatever? Are you falling asleep with the TV on? I know some people think that they have to have it on, but that's been shown to not help with your quality of sleep. Are you eating a lot right before you go to sleep? That can be a distractor. Caffeine intake, alcohol intake, all of those things can affect our quality of sleep. So are you getting enough sleep, and are you getting enough quality of sleep? And then my ladies, are you in and around your cycle? How are you setting yourself up for success for those days where it's extra hard and our hormones are all over the place? Be a cheerleader. Set yourself up for success. Okay? I hope this was helpful. I love you guys. I will talk to you next time.
Hey friend, I really hope you feel empowered by this episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another friend who needs it? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, time to go nourish well, aka eat some good food. I'll meet you back here next time for another episode. I love you and God loves you. Have a beautiful day.